be here. Let me press OK on that. Okay, great. And so I just want to jump in and say, think of this webinar as your launch point that's going to open your mind to the possibilities of what's out there as you head into your school and career journey. I know that's coming up soon. We're going to cover some cool stuff around nutrition, health, career paths related to nutrition, yes, and climate change. We're going to do some confidence building, and then we're going to jump into how to create that clarity for the path you want to go on to that's driven by your passion, purpose, and your authentic voice. And like I said before, like this webinar is going to be interactive, meaning that it's going to include moments of inner self-reflection, and active listening, which is like the key to empowering and honoring your authenticity. You aren't required to pop things in the chat. Like if I'm asking like open-ended questions about, you know, thinking about a time you overcame something, like, you can if you'd like. Feel free to share that, or if you need to keep it to yourself, that's fine too. It's just all about growing. Um, we will have a lot to cover today. So yeah, feel free to pop in that questions, comments in the chat. So if I don't acknowledge all of them, by the end, um, I'll we'll make sure we email out answers or anything or any other insights to you. I am gonna have like this really amazing resource guide that I've been making. So it's gonna have like maybe some references to schools you can check into with some of the careers I'm going to talk about today, other really cool links and articles, as well as the framework I'm going to talk about today, the SERVE framework that I developed. So that's all going to be in there, and all kinds of fun like YouTube links and things like that that I found that were very inspiring. So yeah, so let's see here. So just a quick little agenda. Let's go to the slide here. Okay. So the agenda is I'm just going to quickly go to like, who am I? My career journey. What was that like for me? Then we're going to talk a little bit about health and nutrition and the connectedness of nutrition, how everything is connected in our everyday and every stage. And then we're going to jump into careers in nutrition, the clinical and nutrition science part of it, agricultural and environmental science, and then the food and environmental policy parts of careers in nutrition. And then we're going to jump into, I think the last bit is going to be about the confidence building, where we're going to talk about imposter syndrome and limiting beliefs and the Serve Wellness framework to help get that clarity going into your mind and then be able to create a path on the next steps. So yeah. So let's jump into my lovely career journey. Okay, so mine is super informal, and I say that because it's really important that you do what you want to do, and your path might not be the same as everybody else's, and that's totally fine. I encourage that. I encourage doing your own thing, what's true to your heart. So when I was in high school, when I was a junior, I had I had like teachers saying, well, what do you want to do? Like, what college are you going to go to? I'm like, I have no idea. I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, and I loved working behind the scenes as far as creativity and art. I really wanted to make monsters and creatures and work in the movies, and there were no colleges nearby or any formal colleges in the North Carolina area that I knew about. And so, and then the 4-year colleges like had like bachelors of arts and bachelors of like accounting and stuff like that. I was like, no, no, I want to do makeup. I want to totally work in the movies. And so I was like, okay, well, we didn't have Google back then. We didn't really have the internet. Not like we've had today, but we did have a little bit. So I was able to find a special effects makeup school in Florida, and my mom happened to live down there. So I moved to Florida as soon as I graduated and went to special effects makeup school. And I did that. I did that for about 10 years, um, which was kind of fun. And but along the way, kind of like in the teenage years, I didn't have like formal mentors, which I want to thank Aditi for putting this together because I didn't have this kind of thing growing up. So I'm thankful to do this for you. But my mentors during this time, I was trying to develop like, going into special effects makeup was rock stars. I love going to concerts. I always get backstage. One of my favorite mentors was Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. I actually met him a couple times and hung out with him. So that was a lot of fun. And I interviewed the Pearl Jam drummer for my school newspaper. I used to paint different band member like fingernails before they go on stage. And so, yeah, so that was kind of like that kind of era when I was a junior in high school graduating time. And so Dave Grohl was like, hey, well, just follow your passion. Just do what I did. He's like, okay, I'll do that, but I'm not going to drop out of high school. I think he was a high school dropout and he never went to college. I said, well, okay, well, if he can do it, I can do my own thing. So yeah, that's how I became a special effects makeup artist. And so I did that for a while but the gigs were like off and on. I wasn't getting a consistent paycheck. And so I said, okay, well, I actually need to get a 401k plan, which is like a retirement plan and health insurance. So I had to think about some other options. So I said, okay, well, I didn't really have much money back then. I think I'm going to just drive myself to the community college. I had moved back to North Carolina at the time. And so I just went over there. I was like, hey, I want to sign up for this radiology program because I really, really love like looking at things and finding things in the human body. I'm just so fascinated with it. And so they said, oh, like the program is like super full. We don't have availability this time. What about medical transcription? I was like, what is that? They're like, oh, you type about like when doctors and patients are like they have a visit together. That's the basically the it's like a transcript of their visit into a medical record form. I said, sign me up, let's do it. Didn't know anything about it. I just said, let's do it. And so I did it and I made really, really great money. And that's where I actually found my purpose. Because when I was typing and I was like realizing that doctors like didn't ever ask patients like how was their stress level? What were they eating? Were they getting enough exercise? And they weren't talking to them about like preventing chronic diseases that they were coming into the hospital for. They were just giving them medications. And I'm like, nah, there's got to be more to healthcare. Like, I've got to change this. I've got to change this. That's what got me going. That's when I found my purpose. And so, and my point of that is it takes time to find your purpose. Make sure you follow that passion and it'll lead you to your purpose. And so I ended up getting my bachelor's of science in health and wellness promotion at the University of North Carolina, Asheville, which is in the mountains of North Carolina, which is a cool school, a very cool school. And then I just started connecting myself with people who had the same purpose as me. And that I ended up getting a job at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is a health coaching school. And I became the operations manager there and a product manager there. And I loved it because I love working behind the scenes. And I became a health coach along at the same time because we were able to take the classes there for free. And so, yeah, I became a health and wellness coach, and a health and wellness coach is a facilitator of positive behavior change where the client leads and finds their own answers to lead their way. I'm board certified. Um, and so I basically right now, I help individuals conquer the chaos so they can gain more clarity on following their passion and purpose. I use my Serve Wellness framework, which I'm really excited to show you all today. That is a 5-step coaching process, and it's grounded in evidence-based practices recognized by the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaches. It includes things like motivational interviewing, self-awareness, active listening, readiness for change and goal setting, and that these techniques help you get unstuck from what's holding you back. So I'm super excited to share that with you today. Um, I love product development. Again, I love working behind the scenes. So anyway, so let's see. Okay, so let's jump in. I want you to think about what comes to your mind when you hear the word health. Okay, we're all going to have our own perspectives on it and what that means for your body and your journey. when it comes to health, what you may have had to deal with growing up or what you're dealing with now. So, yeah. So, think about that as we go along. This is what I like to call like understanding the state of health or the illness wellness continuum model. So basically, what this means, or actually, I'll go ahead and define the state of health. Health means a state of complete well-being, emphasizing optimal functioning and quality of life to achieve balance. It doesn't just mean like free from disease or symptoms. So actually includes how one is capable to adapt and grow from life's challenges. So most of the time, we're in that neutral state where like, okay, things are pretty good. They're okay, there might not be like at my super best, but I'm not feeling ill either. I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling okay. So that's that neutral state. That's a good state. That's a good state of balance. So, but as humans, we go through the human experience. There's ups and downs, wins, challenges. We have signs and symptoms, and sometimes we get sick, right? Sometimes we get really stressed out, and that affects our sleep. And then we get moody and fussy and stuff. And so that's okay. And then sometimes that makes us sick because we're not taking care of ourselves. And that happens sometimes. That's okay. That's okay. And also, when it comes to climate change, this model actually works with like when we're working in the state of health of the environment, water quality, um, the neighborhood we're living in, or so it can not just apply to human stuff, it applies to other aspects of life. And so with like climate change or even just on the day-to-day weather, we have storms, we have catastrophic events. So the goal is to really go toward that wellness paradigm, like toward that blue on the scale, um, where work, we prevent, this is where that preventative health thing comes in. We want to work really hard to make sure we're nourishing ourselves, or we're nourishing the soil, or we're taking care of the earth. So when it does get sick, it cannot get as sick as it might have gotten sick. So the goal is to keep it at a stable state. And sometimes we really have to fertilize the soil and nourish everything to make sure we don't have to go toward that illness part. So, and then wellness, the term wellness is actually like the approach associated with the intentional active process of staying healthy. So that is when we are aware, we're actually practicing self-awareness or awareness of the situation, awareness that climate change is happening and we've got to do something about it. We've got to be proactive. Wellness is a totally proactive, and it's making choices that lead us toward an outcome of optimal holistic health and well-being. So yeah, hold up. Did we get a chat? Okay, here's checking the chat. Okay, cool. So, hi Jessica. Um, so yeah, let's go to well-being. So, well-being is holistically made up of several health dimensions. So, we've got like environment, prosperity. Prosperity means more like your return of investment of your time and energy. Sometimes that means money or happiness, whatever that feeling is you want, whatever you want to achieve by what you give out. Physical, like your physical health, intellectual, emotional, relationships, nutrition, and spiritual. Um, so holistically, it's not like health and well-being is not just like tied to one dimension. It's not just tied to nutrition. It's not just tied to your physical health. It's tied to all these dimensions. And so, what is well-being? That's the overall sense of quality of life and satisfaction, fulfillment, peace, balance, happiness, how you feel about life, the overall quality of the planet, the forests, the overall quality of like the earth, right? Like the weather and how we're taking care of climate change, and the well-being of a community. And once you get also into a workforce, maybe that's well-being of a work with a work force culture too. But well-being is not necessarily like an end-all be-all destination. It's more of just like a sense of being, the sense of like, how is this making us feel? What's the overall health of it? But the more we become nourished in each of these dimensions, the easier it is to be able to process setbacks in our life. Okay, so again, this is the human experience. We're going to have those ups and downs. It's totally okay. It's totally normal. It's totally healthy. Um, when it comes to like, it's not like a good or a bad thing if we're having a setback. It's just, those are the times where we really just need to like pause, reflect, and figure out what we need to do with, being in a sick state. Or see the soil in the like is like nutrient deficient. Like, oh, it's not, the soil health is not doing well. We got to do something about it. And so we might want to add some worms in there and, some good compost to get the good microorganisms going in there to make it a healthy soil for the plants. So it's kind of just like, I know we have to practice that self-awareness around it. So we won't have time to go over each dimension, but I do want to talk about the environment one. So environment is all about your surroundings and how that affects your health and well-being and how you function. So this means something like, are you breathing in clean air? Is the internal stress you're feeling in your body affecting your sleep? Sometimes when we're really stressed out, we wake up in the middle of the night. We're kind of like nervous about a test we might have to take that week or do a presentation, right? Um, Another example would be, do the people surround you, who you surround yourself with, do they lift you up? Do they encourage you? Do they bring you down? Okay, so is the space you're in free of clutter, or is it messy? That can affect like how we focus. And what about the safety of your neighborhood or a different part of your town's neighborhood? That's an example of environment. And what about the one's ability to access healthy food if there's no grocery stores nearby? Or do you have access to nature? Oh my gosh, nature is so healing. Just, being in the forest is so good for your health. And so this is all interconnected. All of these dimensions are interconnected with each other. So let's say you live near a park and you like to walk there after school. So that's part of the environment. You have access to that. And then walking in the park helps your body stay physically in shape. So that's connected to the physical dimension, but it's also good for reducing stress, which is part of the emotional dimension. But maybe it also includes walking in the park with your friends, which really nourishes those good relationships in your life. So one activity or one dimension can nourish many dimensions. Pretty cool, huh? So, talk a little bit about nutrition. Yay. Awesome. So, when I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, they had a unique approach to the term nutrition. So, their health coaching school, like I didn't become, nobody becomes a nutritionist when they graduate that school. It's just weird that they named it that, but what they did with the term nutrition was actually kind of cool. And I agree with it really well because they have this thing called primary food. And that is the non-dietary elements that nourish your health and well-being. Like what you consume figuratively affects you internally. So, like, what are you consuming on social media? Are you doing it in a way that nourishes you? Like, what we do, what we consume on the outside actually affects us on the inside. What about exposure to how the mainstream news affects our minds? Like sometimes it could be scary, it might scare us, or we get upset. What about the people around you? Are they pressuring you to do things that you don't align with? What about how you speak to yourself? We have like, sometimes we have negative self-talk and we have positive self-talk. That affects us. That's an example of primary food. And then what about rest? That's going to reduce our stress and make our bodies function a lot better. So it's basically all those other health dimensions besides like food, like literally food. And then IIN's approach, IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, their approach was more about being mindful about like where the food comes from, the importance that food can be medicine and part of helping us function on a day-to-day basis, and our relationship to how we consume things that affect our state of health and well-being. And then the secondary food is literally the food we put in our bodies. Is it going to be nourishing for your body? And I tell people, yes, a bowl of ice cream with your friends can be super nourishing because there's a lot of joy and fun and time with your friends, So a bowl of ice cream is not necessarily like this horrible thing, like we just definitely enjoy those treats, right? But balance is key, right? But what about eating foods that have been grown in nutrient deficient soil? Produce grown in healthier soil will taste better and have more nutrients, than the nutrient void soil. So your body's going to benefit from, better grown food. And so it's important to be aware of how and what we consume because that influences how we nourish ourselves. And of course, the planet and where our food comes from. And I do want to mention this term called bioindividuality. This is like a super important term, what IIN did teach. It's honoring what nourishes you and letting your truth be what guides you. That's going to be really important as you head into your school and career path. Let your truth be what guides you. There's no one size fits all approach to your wellness, your career, your purpose, the relationships that you have in your life. Like there's no one single path or one single script that can guide everyone. It's whatever aligns with you and your authentic voice and how you are uniquely designed. Honor that. Um, I do want to mention, as you go on with life and everything, we're going to have those ups and downs. We're going to feel sad. We're going to feel angry and get frustrated and have life events that are going to throw us for a loop-de-loop, okay? This is normal. Sometimes we get emotional with all of this stuff going on in our life and stress too. That's normal. It's healthy. So I like to think of emotion as energy in motion. Literally motion, energy in motion, okay? And emotions are just information for your body is trying to tell you so you can figure out what to do with it. We're not going to be happy all the time. They ebb and flow depending on what's going on. So it's important not to label as emotions as bad or good. They're just information. And it's going to feel like crap sometimes in our bodies. We might feel tense or, but it's information. It's your body's way of telling you something. So listen to those. Okay, so next we're going to talk about everything is connected to nutrition every day, every stage, literally. So, from soil to harvesting the plants and the food, processing the food, accessing food, from consumption and digestion, and even the decomposition. And so it's a continuous cycle that touches us humans, plants, animals, living organisms, and the water, the earth. And so the factors that are connected with this, we've got like an individual approach kind of. So it's kind of a breakdown of four categories of it. So individual approach, how well is an individual educated on what nutrients they should be getting for their body? So you might wake up and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna drink this like amazing energy drink that's gonna get me like through the day, okay? But you know, it might be affected by, you still need to get nutrients for your body. So on an individual approach, it's important to, understand that you actually do need to have certain nutrients in the day to help your body function. Or what types of relationships do you have with food? Are you eating when you're stressed out? Do you have guilt or shame around it? Do you rush when you're eating? That all affects how nutrients are absorbed in your body. This is the individual approach for nutrition and how it's connected to us personally. And then there's like access and availability. We have these things called food deserts. Um, Food deserts are basically any area that doesn't have access to nutrient foods. They don't have access to a grocery store. They might have a Dollar General or a gas station food instead. Sometimes we see that in more countryside communities where it might be like, 10, 15 miles before they can get to a grocery store. And that can definitely affect people's health if they don't have access. What about sidewalks and public transportation? That affects elderly people or individuals who can't drive or people who might be in wheelchairs. They're going to have a hard time getting to the grocery store. What about cost? Inflation. We saw that, we're seeing that now. Like eggs are insanely priced. What was it like last year? It was like a dozen eggs was like $10, $8 or something, compared to like $2.50 that we used to have it. And then what about access to safe drinking water? Okay. It's all connected. Nutrition is all connected to this stuff. And then environmental conditions, climate change. What about that? That's going to affect the drought. I mean, how much water we're going to have that could bring drought and, for the crops. What's going to happen when the crops are not going to get enough water? What's going to happen whenever there's more rain than usual or the rain starts earlier in the season? Okay, that totally affects growing conditions. And climate change can affect, shifts in like the amount or abundance of pests or funguses that might take out a crop. Also, how are farms designed with the environment? That's going to be really important. I'll talk about that later too. Because it's not just going to be a flat field, and they might have to terrace some things. What about the wildfires that happen in California? That totally affects food and nutrition. And then how is soil health affected by like stuff like pesticides? In Fresno, we have arsenic. We have so much crazy like poisons that they put into the fruit orchards here. And it's kind of sad. It gets into our water. So I'm kind of like, it makes me cringe. So I'm like afraid to drink the tap water. So, and then there's also like pollinator disruption. The bees and the birds and the insects we depend on to like pollinate everything. And then deforestation, that's a big deal. And then ethics and policy effect. That's totally connected to nutrition. The way we process food. Are the food processing plants stripping away the nutrients from food? You've got like, the white, all-purpose flour, and then you've got like more of the whole wheat flour. So you got to think about, which flour is more nutrient dense. What about how they process animal products? That's a whole thing that has to do with ethics. If, it's a humane process or not. That's a whole thing. What about all the growth hormones and antibiotics that they put into like the cows and the chickens and stuff? So that affects the nutrition and how it digests in our bodies. What about marketing to kids? That's a thing. Kids see the cartoons on the cereal boxes and they want to eat it, all the sugary cereal, right? Um, and what about like, are there enough safety measures and policies to make sure the water's safe to drink? What about school lunch reform? So those are examples of how everything is literally connected to nutrition, right? So yeah, that's wild to think about actually. Now you're gonna like go like, tomorrow and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, everything's like that's connected to nutrition. This is and that is. So it's wild to think about, but it really is. So yeah, all right, we're going to jump into talking about careers and nutrition, the fun stuff. Okay, we're going to really take a deep dive into this. So sit back, listen, and I'm hoping that some of these, catch your eye and get you excited and just opens you up to the possibilities of what's out there. Maybe something will get you excited. So yes, so we will talk about nutrition careers as far as the nutrition science aspect. Kind of the main one most people think about when it comes to nutrition is the registered dietitian. That is, what do they do? They focus on the nutrition science to manage and treat medical conditions, diet plans, maybe a patient has hormone problems and they might talk to a dietitian to help balance someone's hormones, especially when a woman in their 40s goes through menopause, or maybe when, I don't know, hormones, hormone balance is important. So there's a whole registered dietitian just for that specialty. They also counsel and educate patients on healthy eating. They also partner with physicians and community programs. They're more of a prescriptive approach commonly now, but they can work in research settings and public health agencies as well. And then there's more specialized areas where RDs can work, or special interest areas like pediatric nutritionists. That's like taking care of kids and what diets the kids might need to have to grow healthy and strong. Geriatric population, that's the elderly population. A diet that you will give a kid is going to be totally different a diet that you're going to give an elderly person. Um, Sports nutrition is really important for athletes. They're going to require a totally different type of diet. Functional nutritionists are awesome. I love them. And this ties straight into the nutrigenomics, how nutrition affects our genes. I was just listening to a podcast today where this company takes people's genes, like their genetic information, and they create this whole nutrition plan just based on your personalized genetic information. Like, how cool is that, right? Like to have your own personal nutrition just for you. Um, and also the microbiome, I didn't put it on this slide, but the microbiome is so intriguing. So the microbiome, if you don't know, is this living microorganism system that lives in our body, mainly our gut, but it's all over our skin, all inside of our body. And that basically acts as like a beautiful immune system. It helps keeps us strong. And we have to feed it. We have to nourish it. So there's a lot of nutrition related to the microbiome. In fact, we have more bacteria in and on our body than we do actual body cells. So we got to take care of them. They're our friends. Um, Feeding them things like they love vegetables and fiber and fermented foods like sauerkraut, yogurts. So that's a whole study in itself, just like nutrition and the microbiome, because when you have a healthy microbiome, it actually affects your mental health too. And I think it helps your gut. It works together with your gut to make like serotonin and like the happy hormones to help you with a like a good, chill, like happy mood. And then you can jump into RDs can jump into food science and safety, who they analyze food composition. They do proper packaging and safety requirements. Something like they figure out how to do expiration dates on food, right? Or if bacteria is going to grow in that food, bad bacteria, that grow in the food under certain conditions. And that also includes the food science and safety people, and also include like if they're making vitamins or supplements and what the proper dosaging would be, and if the stuff in the vitamins is like proper and everything. And then RDs also work in food service. They might oversee food operations in schools or healthcare corporate settings. Yeah, so and then as far as like schooling for an RD, you're going to have to make sure that it is I wrote this down. It is the Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition and Dietetics, the ASEND. Make sure it's an ASEND credentialed school. Don't go to like some 6-month online program or anything like that. Because RDs they have to know their stuff. They have a lot of responsibility. They're very liable and they have to uphold their role. So they're serious. They're like, just as important as doctors and stuff. So they have to be super safe in what they do. And it's like a lot of organic chemistry, molecular science as well. So the eatrightpro.org/ascend, this will be on the resource sheet. And that's going to list all the accredited programs and pathways if you're interested in RD programs. And then I think when you graduate the master's degree program, you have to take like a board exam too. And here's all the goody fun stuff for climate change when it comes into nutrition careers. I'm like actually kind of obsessed with this myself. I'm like a naturalist, meaning like I love everything about nature. So this is totally up my alley too. I think if I were to do my life all over again, this is probably what I do. I guess I still technically can. Um, so the agricultural and environmental sciences, what this focuses on is research, management, and improvement of food production, natural resources, and ecosystems. And so definitely if you're interested in climate change, this is the one. These are the studies and the programs on where it's at. I have like regenerative farming and agroecology. What in the world is that? So that is a holistic approach that applies ecological principles to researching, designing, and managing sustainable food and farming systems that involves like crop production, soil management, climate change impact, pest management. So when the climate change brings all those nasty little pests that are going to take out your crop, this is the field to study and to figure out how to manage that. Economics around that, because when the yields of the crops are off and on and totally affected, you're going to have to figure out the economics of the downfall of that or the upfall, who knows? And food availability. So the really cool example of this, and I actually got to experience it, is chocolate farming. Okay, how cool. So I was on the Big Island of Hawaii and at Honolulu Orchards, and this guy Ren, he was really into all this whole agroecology, and he studied the soil management, and so he knows how to like feed the soil the proper nutrition to produce some of the best coffee beans in the world. And I thought that was cool. I had like a 4 hour workshop with him. It was just amazing. And there's this like little gecko who loved the little coffee beans. So when the coffee beans, there's this big coffee pot. Sorry, when I say coffee, I mean chocolate. The coffee is on my mind. Cocoa, chocolate comes into a big pod, like a little miniature football, and we cut it open. It has like these like individual like white like miniature golf ball looking like seed things in them. It's like wrapped around in this white juicy pulp. You can actually eat that, and I it tastes like fruit. It's so good. So that little gecko is enjoying it. And inside that white stuff are the chocolate beans. So that's fun. Let's see. And then we also have another example when it comes to the regenerative farming and agroecology is that I actually heard this on a podcast. There's a couple out in Arkansas that are working with an organization called like agriculture, AgriCapture. They establish climate-friendly certification for rice farming. So they've redesigned the way rice is grown by alternating periods of wetting and drying, using early drainage and managing crop residue in a way that supports cover crops and wildlife food plots on zero grade fields, meaning it's a flat field. They flood it, and they somehow how they do it, they water it in a way that they don't have to keep on repeating the watering for the rice. And it somehow they save like millions and millions of gallons of water. They reduce fertilizer use. They increase the local waterfowl habit or the ones that migrate in. And they've lowered the greenhouse gas emissions. And I think they won some award for that. So that would be an example of like regenerative farming. And so courses that you might be taking when it comes to that might be like any sort of thing in the regenerative farming or agroecology, agricultural ecology would be plant pathology. That is super cool. That's understanding and how to manage the diseases in plants caused by pathogens like fungi, bacteria, viruses, and nematodes, and how those environmental issues impact that. So you might be taking a plant pathology class if you're into this type of uh, environmental or agricultural science. And then there's mycology, which you might take as well in this kind of course of study. They study fungi, those mushrooms. What role do they play in the ecosystem? They communicate with nutrient transport for plants, trees, the soil ecosystem, and crops. So a lot of really cool medicinal and biological value in fungi. Um, and that actually gets me to talk about the biotech part of it because the mushrooms, so biotech and bioengineering is basically using biologic techniques to improve food safety, quality, and production. So with the mushrooms, the mycology, they're using the biologic techniques to make like to-go boxes, packaging. They use that to help they use the mushrooms to help break down plastics and treating and preventing illnesses like cancer and Alzheimer's disease. Cool, right? And then there's also like cellular agriculture. This might be one of the classes that you take. Um, that focuses on developing agricultural products from cells from the plants or some sort of organism. They grow meat in a lab. You've heard of lab grown meat. They also grow seaweed in labs too. Seaweed is so cool. Um, but yeah. And then what about agricultural biotechnology? When it comes to climate change, will there be more genetic modification required to improve crop yields to become more resistant to disease? That would be agricultural biotechnology, where you have to figure out some genetic modification sort of things. That's an example. So, yeah. And then more climate change kind of focused nutrition careers, marine biology. The ocean is and lakes, the water um, is really important for plants and our food system. So definitely marine biology and ecology. This is basically how climate change affects marine life, ecosystems, and biodiversity. That's connected to nutrition because humans and other life forms depend on it. Seaweed, like I said, is so amazing. It absorbs massive and massive amounts of carbon dioxide. Um, so we want to take care of our seaweed. That would be a marine biology sort of field. And then what about like human consumption of like mussels or other seafood we might have to eat or fish? What if they're affected by toxins in the water? There has to be somebody to go out and test those things. That would be in the marine biology or marine ecology field. And someone who works in that might work with like the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the U.S. Department of Interior. And then we can jump into oceanography, which is like the study of ocean acidification, like acidification and chemical impacts on marine environments. So when climate change happens, or if there's toxins going into the ocean, um, that would be more of like a chemical oceanography. And then there's physical oceanography, who study the model of ocean currents. This has a lot to do with climate change because when there's heat absorption, I think that messes with the ocean currents. I don't know exactly how it works, and that affects like the whole ecosystem in the ocean. And then there's like environmental engineer. They help develop solutions to environmental problems. They work in helping to prevent, manage, and troubleshoot, making sure water is safe to return to rivers, oceans, and lakes for human consumption. So that's a cool job actually. Um, and then hydrologist, how water moves through the environment. They study the groundwater, erosion, and impacts of climate change to help manage and mitigate droughts, floods, and how to reroute all of that water. So like an example of this would be like I don't know if you've ever been to like the Hoover Dam or different dams. They build dams to like contain water. That actually affects a lot of aquatic life because the path that water used to go on used to feed a lot of other plants and other animals that it depended on. And when you have dams, that can like cut off the water supply for other food systems. So that's a thing. And then climatologist. There we go. Study how climate changes over time. So you're gonna might analyze data from ice cores, or they use a lot of satellites and sampling to understand long-term trends and human influences. So this is totally cool and worth mentioning. There is a whole team of scientists who work in Antarctica who study these climate change impacts and ecosystem health. They monitor the ice, ocean currents, marine life. There's a whole podcast on it. I'm obsessed with it. I've listened to like every episode. It's called the Everything Antarctica podcast. Check it out. I'll put that in the resource notes. Um, so yeah, and here we go. Let's see. Then when it comes to policy change and justice, we have that the anything to do with like policy or food justice, the masters in public health, that's what you're going to go for. And I don't know if it requires a master of nutrition, but I'm pretty sure it almost always requires like a master of public health to really like dig in and change the laws and regulations, decisions made at those government levels that are going to shape the food system, like how it's grown or processed, distributed, accessed, marketed, food labels, food safety, affordability. Um, there's a magazine I used to subscribe to called Nutrition Action. That's put on by the Center of Science and Public Interest. If there's anything food policy, environmental policy with has to do with food and nutrition, check out Nutrition Action. And environmental policy, you might find something like in that field, civil engineering. Um, a lot of ecological restoration, making sure we don't keep chopping down trees. We need those trees to help with the climate change. They see, what is it, the word, sequester the carbon dioxide. You know, maybe we need more green spaces in urban areas. And then there's like environmental lawyers. Hey, attorneys are really important when it comes to climate change and protecting our land, and farms too. You want to protect society from corporations who are allowing the emission of toxic chemicals into our air and water and soil. Yeah, that's a whole thing. And then there's environmental scientists. They help with providing the research and data needed to analyze environmental problems like climate change, pollution that affects the air, soil, and water. They're literally the people who do all the research and data to prove there's a problem. And so the lawyers can fight and say, hey, look, we've got the proof that there's actually stuff in the water. See, we got the scientists who've done the research, and we're going to fight for changing, the policy. So yeah, before we jump into the next section, I just want to make sure, see if there's any questions that I need to answer real quick. Everyone good?
Uh,
Cool.
I have one quick question actually.
Yeah.
Um, I just wanted your personal opinion. Like, what current nutrition policies do you feel like needs the most reform?
Oh my gosh. Processed food. Let's get rid of it. Yeah, we
Yeah.
need to, yeah, I can go on for hours about this. There's so much, and it's being marketed to kids, and the big companies who are making these processed foods, it's stripped away the nutrients, and they're making so much money, and they've got so much money to market it to people to think that they want it, that people need to eat it, and it's actually making them sick. That would be my big thing. I would also say making healthy food affordable. Like I think if somebody's going to go into a produce section, like everybody should be able to afford a great organic food. I don't understand why the prices are so high. Actually, I do, because if you're going to get an organic certification for your farm, it costs a lot of money to get that certified. So I think that's why some of the costs are high, but I believe they should get like I don't know if I pray they get some subsidiary, the farms or the companies, that way people can afford just to freely buy it. Um, I think safety of food's really important, and water. Fresno's got a horrible chemicals in their tap water, like way above dangerous levels. And I want to see somebody change that. And I'm scared to drink the tap water here because we have those farms We have a lot of pesticides and stuff getting into the soil, into from the soil into the water. I think there needs to be more change with that. Um, yeah, I think those would probably be my top three.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've heard a lot about processed food, and I was wondering like how much of an impact does it have on like reproductive health, especially like I've heard like I have so many like family members or whatever that are getting their periods so much younger, and I'm wondering if it's because of their food habits.
Yep, or growth hormones. Yep, 100%. I totally believe that. Yeah, and that's a total, that it's its own reproductive health and nutrition is its own, like that's a total, that's its own career. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, very good questions. And you guys are the future of this stuff too, so definitely. Cool. All right, so we're going to jump into sort of the confidence building and serve wellness framework portion now. Great question. Thank you, Sadvika. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay. So now think about what are you really, really, really passionate about? What lights you up? What gets you so excited? What could you do all the time? You're just so interested in it. So, think about that as we're going along with these confidence building exercises today and your path to the future. Minimize this. Okay, I can see. All right. So this is kind of the first thing I want you to like take with you because we're going to have to do really tough things in our life and we're going to go through a lot of challenges and it's really important to pay attention to our mindset. Um, and so we've got this thing called a growth versus the fixed mindset. Think about a time where you've had to go through like a really tough challenge. Sometimes we tell ourselves like, I can't do this. This is really hard, you know? And then also at the same time, think about what was it that you needed to move through that. Um, like I said, we're going to have ups and downs. We're going to have challenges. So mindset is so important to get ourselves through it. Um, a growth mindset might be like, okay, I can do tough things. I can get through this. I've been through a really tough time before and I've gotten through that before. I'm not afraid of this. I'm not afraid of facing this. It's okay to have setbacks. I will find a way to make this work. What if I do succeed at something instead of telling myself I'll never be good at something? I don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Remember that. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be really passionate about what you're doing. Um, you're open to feedback. And then a fixed mindset, it's, sometimes we do get frustrated, but listen to it and, try to not listen. I mean, actually not like listen to it. Just recognize if you do it, realize that, you might not want it. These are the things that are going to hold you back. What if I fail at something? That's going to keep you from doing something. Or this will never work. What will others think of me if I choose that decision? Okay. That's going to be a fixed mindset thought. Or I'm not good enough. I'm afraid of messing up. I'm scared to try new things. Okay. Those are the things that are going to keep us stuck. And sometimes you're going to get those thoughts that float in your head sometimes. Just recognize they're there and try to like bat it off with a stick. So, because you can get through tough things and you can and you will. Everything you need is already inside of you to get through it. Um, we have these things called limiting beliefs. These are the invisible wall of doubt, the negative self-talk that we've been conditioned um, to believe. Maybe they've come from our childhood. They keep us from fully exercising what we're actually capable of doing or worthy of or ready for. They're beliefs about ourselves or a situation that hold us back. They keep us stuck. Okay, these are like I can't statements. I don't have enough statement. I don't have enough, or I'm not this. I don't have enough technical skills to do what I want to do. I'm not experienced enough. I'm too much of an introvert. I can't afford to. I'm not smart enough. Those are those limiting beliefs. Okay. They're stories we tell ourselves, and our thoughts become our beliefs. And even if there's no truth to them, like I said, they could have been rooted in your minds, your brains when you were a child, but you don't have to let that define you, and you don't have to let them live rent free in your head. You can actually change this. So let's see, how do you overcome them? It takes a little work. You got to uncondition yourself. You get to be the creator of changing how you think, which is kind of cool because it's really empowering. It's part of the growth mindset, and this helps you become resilient. And the more you do it, the easier it is to overcome these beliefs, these limited beliefs. How you speak to yourself matters. So how do we do this? We identify the limiting belief. Notice when it's happening. Is that a pattern? The idea is to catch it, acknowledge it's there, and explore the source. Where is that coming from? Challenge it. Are those statements actually true? How does it serve you? How does that not serve you? Maybe at one point it protected us, but maybe it doesn't protect us anymore. What will you gain if you let that belief go? Then you get to I can't even say that word right now, rewrite it. So let's go back to that concept of that primary food. The thoughts we consume about ourselves, are they new or nourishing us? So let's create a nourishing thought, right? You have the power to control your own thoughts. So let's rewrite them. I know I'm good at this, so I can get through this. I'm creative enough so I can solve the problem I need to solve. I will be safe if I can adjust if I need to. I am enough. Um, I'm capable of learning new skills. I don't know how to do it, but I'm willing to explore how to figure it out. Um, okay, so you're rewriting this belief, but now you actually have to practice it. And when we practice that, it actually rewires our brains because the cells in our brain that fire together wire together. And you can test those out, practice them, and that becomes habit. That's how you create new habits, actually. Um, and that's how you do it. You identify the belief, you explore the source of the belief, you challenge the truth of it, then you get to rewrite it and rewire it. So yeah, cells that fire together, wire together. That's actually proven like physiologically. And imposter syndrome. All right. This is a type of limiting belief where you feel maybe your skills and talents or accomplishments aren't competent or worthy or deserving enough. Or maybe you fear that someone's going to call you out on it. Or maybe you fear that your success is defined by others. Like imposter syndrome would be like, well, I don't have a master's degree. How am I supposed to speak about nutrition? All right. Well, I'm going to teach you what I know about it. That's going to be enough. Because what people are looking for are value in what you're offering. So having imposter syndrome is natural, very common, and most of us have it at some point. It's totally normal. It's actually healthy. You might be the type of person who you want to really get good at something. You really care. Um, so you don't need to know everything about something to talk about it or to do something, or you just need to know enough. Um, it's great to want to polish up your skills, but it doesn't mean you can't create success along the way. People are not looking for perfection. They're looking for how you create value. They don't see what you're still getting better at. They have no idea. They have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. They just are like, happy you're here. Um, and this is a great example of sometimes people are just happy to have somebody smile at them. That's really effective. That would be a good example of, providing value to somebody. You don't have to be an expert at it. You could just smile. And like the most successful artists or musicians aren't where they are because they were top of their class in an Ivy League music school. In fact, probably most of them didn't even go to college. But what made them successful, listen, is your passion. What you're passionate about is very exciting. Um, and these musicians want others to be able to enjoy their music. That's so meaningful to them. What is meaningful to me is going to provide value to other people. Okay, it's not about this like five credentials that you might have. It's about what's meaningful too. I mean, yes, education helps, but it's also really important to have meaning. It's about how it's all about adding value and offering the world something you're passionate about. So, and with imposter syndrome, I think a lot of the fear comes from maybe somebody is going to call you out on it. We're afraid of criticism or feedback. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. There's a couple types of criticism. Constructive criticism. This is actually healthy. So someone who gives you constructive criticism truly, truly wants to enhance and boost your talents, skills because they respect your value and what you're offering. That's totally healthy. Like, be okay with that. Just totally be like, I am so open to getting constructive criticism. It's a great thing. But not everything is going to be a 5-star review. Like a 3-star review might like sting a little bit, but the important question to ask yourself is, does this feedback intend to add value? And if it does, take a moment to breathe and be like, okay, this is going to sting, but actually they believe in me and they're right. I am going to improve. Yeah. So it's not always a bad thing. Someone respects what you're doing. Now, destructive criticism, I call this noise. So this type of criticism doesn't reflect your true wants or needs, and this person doesn't recognize or respect the value that you're offering. It reflects more the person making the comment to their benefits. And people have a right to their opinion, but they're not actually trying to benefit you. This is nothing to be afraid of. It's rare, but I like to call it noise. An example of this one would be like, you'll never make anything of yourself if you don't go to college. That would be destructive criticism. You can totally make something of yourself if you don't go to college. Like I said, the rock stars that inspired me, like they didn't go to college. So I know like there's so many possibilities out there. Um, so just focus on the feedback that helps you grow, not the noise that pulls you back. We can't be everything to everyone, and that is totally okay. Lean into the imposter syndrome without giving into it, because there's going to be opportunities for growth along the way. We're always going to grow. So, all right, let's jump into the SERVE framework. This is something I developed the last year and a half. Um, let's talk about it. What is that? This helps you get unstuck and conquer the chaos from what's blocking you. Okay, so it's a 5-step wellness-centered approach to help you move through the chaos and into clarity so you can create a path that aligns with who you are, where you are now, and where you're headed and what truly serves your passion and purpose, okay? And we're going to totally figure out how do we get our passion and how do we get our purpose. And this is not particularly like a linear process. It's not like, oh, first you have to go to this step and that step. You kind of go like, you can go back and forth and any step at any time, really. I love the seek. Seek stands for S in serve. And so I love this one. This is where we need to seek the space to identify and build a relationship with what's holding us back. So important. Get to know it, become friends with it. Spending your time with yourself is so important to be able to find this, to be able to seek within and create that self-awareness about what is going on inside of you. We talked about those limiting beliefs. You know, is that help? Is that keeping us stuck? Let's figure that out. We get tied up in our busy lives. You're in school, you're busy as heck. You got all these exams and classes that you have to, really perform for. And your mind is on go, go, go all the time. So, seeking the space could look like something as simple as like when you're in the shower or a bath. You have a few minutes just to let your mind wander a little bit, get that space, let yourself breathe a little bit. Maybe it's walking in nature, journaling, doing art, meditating. Any quiet time you can get to yourself counts. Space is going to be what allows you to tune in to yourself because you're allowing your mind to breathe and exhale. um, so it's going to give you more time to tune in and scan your senses. How is whatever's holding you back actually making you feel? If you're stressed out or something, you're like, my body might be super tensed up. I'm not in that neutral state of health. I'm not in a stable spot. What is standing in my way? It says to identify when and where and how do those tensions in your body show up? get to know it, get to know when it happens. Sometimes it's really hard and that's okay. It's seeking that space is the first step to try to figure it out. And it's going to be different for everyone. Just recognizing how it comes and goes in your body is empowering. And it's also important to be mindful and have compassion around anything that's feeling overwhelming or tense in your body. It's totally normal. This is part of the human experience. It's just information. Okay, there's no judgment. It's okay to feel like you're not feeling well. That's okay. Just give your body the opportunity to process it and let it flow. Meet yourself where you're at. You can't rush to identify it, but you have to work toward trying to it. You have to, work toward trying to identify it. But meet yourself where you're at. It might take some time. And so when you create that space for yourself, that helps things flow through, and it opens up that space for clarity and a more balanced state of mind. So this is how we're going to get clear, okay? Because what's keeping us stuck is going to like block us from moving forward. Okay, I like to say space is the place where self-discovery flows and magic grows. How is what holding you back serving you? How is it not serving you? What can you actually influence about that situation? What can you control, not control about it? What do you need to let go of that's holding you back? What do you need right now to help you navigate through the barrier? Maybe it's preparation for it. I don't know, you know? So only you know those answers. And then the next is envision. Okay, so this is kind of the bigger picture of things. Envision that you were able to successfully navigate through one of those barriers you identified in that seek step. Or maybe there's a longer term goal you've been wanting to achieve. This envision is kind of like a vision board or just imagining that you have achieved getting through something or achieving a goal. It could be envisioning can be used for different aspects of your life, but for this case, it's kind of the formulation of I want to blank, which is the what, to so that because or the why. So it's your what and why. So the why gives it meaning or purpose and why it matters to you. Here's an example. I need to stop comparing myself to others so they can focus on my own growth and happiness. That would be an example. And let's say you already got through that and you pushed through that barrier of stopping of not comparing yourself to others. What does that look and feel like? Maybe that feels like you have more freedom and you don't feel as stuck, like you have to please somebody else. And what new beliefs about yourself did you have to adopt to achieve this new vision of yourself? What did you ultimately need to push through that barrier? And what steps may have you taken to do that? And this is just imagining it. This is just a vision of it. And then this is kind of just like a guidepost. I popped in here. It's not part of the serve framework. It's just talking about how your passion and purpose are guideposts for finding your clarity. Passion is what lights you up, what inspires and gives you joy. It's passion is like, oh, I really love doing something. I really love this. Maybe you really like researching stuff. Maybe you really like makeup. Maybe you really like climate change, right? That would be your passion. And then your purpose is like the meaning, the value, the problem you want to solve with that. Okay. These two guideposts are like your internal compass. When things feel chaotic or thrown off balance, returning to them is going to help you recenter and help you propel yourself forward to what truly serves you. So we go back to that what and why formulation. I want to narrow down which public health programs are best for me, which is the what, because I'm passionate about ensuring our water is safe to drink. That's the why. That's the meaning behind it. Um, so think about what that is for you as you're planning your school and career journey, or maybe you just have a setback in your life. Sometimes it's you want to, I want to paint a picture. It gives me joy that helps me deal with, grieving my dad. Like, that could be a passion and purpose guidepost too. And this is totally worth mentioning because if you love Raising Cane's chicken, there's a really awesome documentary on YouTube by Business Insider, and the guy is just amazing. He's so unconventional. I don't know if he graduated college. I can't remember. Maybe he did go, but he said it was passion. That's why he's so successful. So I'm going to put that in the resource page. So definitely check that one out. Next, we're going to talk about R in the SERVE framework, ready. Okay. What does it mean to be ready for the next step or the next thing? Readiness is having the confidence or the capability of doing what's possible to engage in the next steps of what you want to or need to do. Okay, you're always going to be ready for something, even if you're thinking about it or preparing for what it would take to be ready. Okay. So sometimes to be like, I don't know what I need yet to be ready. But just thinking about that is preparing to be ready. So that is technically, you're meeting yourself where you're at. You're thinking about it. So you know you want to do it. Um, but it's also important to apply grace and compassion with the process because you might not, like I said, you might not know how to take the next step. That's totally okay. That could be frustrating because not knowing how is just part of the navigation. Have patience with yourself. Um, like maybe you're waiting for something to happen to feel ready, or maybe you're ambivalent about the decision, making decisions about it. There's no rush. This is your timeline. You want to meet yourself where you're at. And what is ambivalence when it comes to being ready or decision making? Sometimes decision making can be tough. You don't know if you're making the right choice or not. So ambivalence is having mixed feelings about something. Um, an example, maybe you're nervous about going away to college. You're nervous about going away to college. So we have this thing in health and wellness coaching we call a decisional balance. You can use this for decisions. You can use this about, feeling the readiness to change. So the example of, okay, nervous about going away to college. What if I stayed the same and I'm just going to stay nervous about going away to college? And what if I do make the change and even though I am nervous about it, and maybe if I make the change, what are the pros and cons of each? Okay. So the pros might be if you stay the same, I'm going to be so comfortable being close to my friends and family. I'll be like familiar with routines, the environment. It might be less expensive and easier transition, but the cons might be like, hey, I'm going to miss out on growth opportunities. I'm going to have might have limited access to career paths. Might be a risk of regret, or maybe fear is letting me make this decision. Okay. And it's not saying either of these choices are right or wrong. You just want to be making the decision for the right reasons. And if you make the change, the pros might be, oh, wow, if I do go away to college, like somewhere like Boston or maybe Texas or something exciting, new experiences, new friends. I'll have more independence. I won't have to live with my parents, but you might want to live with your parents. It just depends what's important to you. There's not a right or wrong answer. Maybe that going away to college will be more aligned with your career opportunities. Maybe you're going to be able to build more resilience and adaptability to change. Maybe the cons would be, I'm going to feel homesick. I'm going to miss my family. And maybe it's going to be it's going to be hard to learn how to do things on my own and navigating unfamiliarity. Okay. So the decisional balance is really cool. But there's a whole guide to this. So like, how do I figure this out? What's right for me, right? In making decisions. You want to reflect on those inner beliefs. Remember, we talked about limiting beliefs. Are they leading you? Are you being led by those limiting beliefs or fear? What matters most to you when you're looking at that decisional balance or making a choice or a decision? What are your priorities? There's not any right or wrong answers. It's just about what's right for you. Yeah, which choices align most with your passion, purpose, and your truth? Are you making decisions based on what other people think you should do with your life? Or are you doing what's right for you? Those types of questions are going to help you figure out if you're on the path that, align with you. And what's possible right now? What are you ready to do right now? Don't force yourself to do something you're not ready for if you truly, truly are not ready. And then there's this thing called the readiness scale, which is really nice because it helps create ease into it. So the readiness scale is like 1 through 10, and tens being like the most ready. Like I'm ready, I don't even have to think about it. And then like one is like I'm definitely not ready. I'm not even thinking about it. So figure out where you are on that scale. Maybe you're like on a 5 and you're kind of in that ambivalent stage. What would it take for you to get from a 5 to a 6? Like that 1 point. Maybe that just means you need to do a little research. Maybe you're ready to do research. So figure out what it is, what would make you increase it to one more point. And that'll help you lead to like a better decision for yourself or a readiness to change. And then being ready to take the next step doesn't mean you need to have everything all figured out and your life figured out. All you need to figure out is what you're ready to do right now. And then, are we good on time? Can, I might have like 10 more minutes, Aditi.
Yeah, I think we could like wrap up and then have Q&A once we're done with the serve framework.
Yeah, are you all okay to stay for another 10 or 15 minutes? Just want to check in.
Yeah, sounds
Cool.
good.
Okay, cool, great, thank you. Yeah, I'm almost done with the serve. We just have like two more. And then voice, that's so important. This is all about being authentic to you. So important. I see so many times that like people do things to please others and then they end up being unhappy in their career. Um, So V for voice. This is going to help you feel more confident that you're on the right path or making the right decision for yourself. This is your truth, your values, your integrity, and what matters most to you, and what authentically nourishes you. Your voice is how you show up, what you stand for, and the energy behind your decisions. And it's also important to nourish your own voice. Meet yourself with kindness and compassion always and grace. Listen to how your thoughts speak to you. There's no need to feel shame or judgment or feel guilty for who you are and what you need in your life. You are enough. You're good enough. You deserve to do what makes you happy. It doesn't mean that you're not allowed to be frustrated or annoyed or indecisive. It just means you're allowed to feel everything and then still choose to meet yourself with kindness at the same time. And there's going to be people in your life, I'm telling you, who might want to steer you into a different direction based on what they want for you. Hey, your authenticity is your power, something that's just yours, and it's really important to protect it and stand up for that. Your work, your dreams, what you're passionate about, what problem you want to solve in your life, that's yours. Okay? That's meaningful to you, and that's what's going to matter. And what you're passionate about, yeah, like that's going to make you stand out, and that's going to be the sign that you're on the right track. And then engage. This is the taking action step, the how you're going to get there. I want you to focus on the journey and the process, not the end goal and the destination. Because in reality, getting from A to B is not a straight line. Reality is you're going to go on twists and turns and loop-de-loops and go inside caves and go into a rabbit hole, whatever. You're going to have to navigate and adjust along the way. Welcome to the human experience, right? The journey is going to always take you where you need to be at that moment. Trust that, okay? You have to go on those like experiences, and it's like supposed to teach you what you need to take the next step. And goals, we set goals for ourselves, which are good. But just remember, those are just guideposts to help us propel forward. You're not a failure if you don't reach a goal. They're just reflection moments. You can always adjust along the way. When you're setting goals and are figuring out how to get to where you want to go, it can feel overwhelming. So maybe here's the thing, if you have a lot of ideas and you need to brainstorm, like I want to do 3 or 5 things in my life, I just don't know which one to pick first, write it all out. You don't need that perfect plan right now. Just think about what's possible. What are the top 2 or 3 things that matter most right now that you're like, okay, I got all these ideas. Pick the top 2, pick the top 3, start there. And then you might figure out like, even those top couple, once you did more research into them, you're like, yeah, it's definitely not for me. And then, it helps narrow it down. That's okay. It takes time to figure it out. Um, yeah, so just focus on those micro steps, figure it out, Let passion and purpose and your voice help create that framework of the how you're going to take action. Okay, and give those goals meanings. So here's an example, like I want to feel more confident about deciding which college is right for me so that it aligns with my passion around climate change. I don't know a specific direction I want to take yet, but I'm going to start off by researching their majors and specialty classes and the choices, coming up with questions to ask the professors. And once I receive that information, I can narrow it down even more. Okay, sometimes we just need to like do those little micro steps to figure out what to do next. So you don't have to like create your entire like framework of like how you're going to get from point A to point B because it can change based on what you figure out and what you experience along the way. Um, so yeah. And so again, apply that grace and compassion when a setback comes your way. It's just a sign for you to pause, reflect, and adjust. Goals are just guideposts. So they're not failures. They're not failures at all. So I just want to make sure, be kind to yourself when it comes to setting goals and meet yourself where you're at. So yeah, that is the seek, envision, ready, voice, engage, serve framework. And everything you need is inside of you. All those experience that you had and you've overcome, that's setting you up for the next thing you need to do in your life. So, and then that's it. Um, you can connect with me on Instagram at Kiss My Wellness and my LinkedIn page, and I'll put all this stuff in the resource page. And I want to thank you so much for coming. Um, and letting me share all the good stuff. Let me expand my little screen here. Hold on. And I'm going to go stop share. So yes, if you had any takeaways or have any questions or comments, I've got some time, as much time as you need. Thank you. So yes, thank you so much for letting me speak today, and you're welcome.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you so much for like sharing everything with that. And a quick reminder for everyone that this session has been recorded and I'll upload it to our website where you could also check the upcoming webinars. And before we end, I would like to give you a sneak peek at our next webinar, which is in February. And we'll be hosting Dr. Alka Agarwal, who's a physician and environmental health expert. And she'll dive into climate and public health because she does a lot of public policy and making a real impact in our communities. And thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time off on a Saturday and being with us over here. And if you would like to attend our next webinars, you can let me know.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And it's going to be, and Zara, yes, I'll just put it in here now, and then I'm going to have it all on I'm going to have it on the resource page too. And there's going to have so many goodies into it.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much for being here and taking the time. I hope you had some good takeaways. I
Yeah,
like your shirt too. Metallica. Is it a
thanks.
Metallica shirt? Yeah, I
I
love
went to their concert.
Metallica.
Yeah.
Did you? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I'm so into like their old, like their first few albums. I love
Yeah. Yeah.
metal. That's
They
awesome.
they played their classics at the show last June, so it was pretty cool.
How incredible.
Yeah, and when you mentioned you saw they from Foo Fighters, right? I thought that was really cool. Like I was like my jaw dropped.
And I actually hung out with him. Gosh, so he used to be the drummer of Nirvana. And so whenever the guy passed away, the singer, he Dave Grohl, started his new band, the Foo Fighters. That's the tour I was on, the very, very first one.
Wow.
Yeah, he still had his long hair when I think he was
Yeah.
like 25 years old or something.
Hmm.
I
That's
got
crazy. Yeah.